Ogilvy? All right, it's 7:18 here, Big 550 KTRS. Not getting a lot of attention because Governor Greitens' story is sucking all the oxygen. But Maplewood, the city of Maplewood, could not come to an agreement and therefore missed out on an opportunity to have the organization Great Rivers Greenway build a bike path connecting all sorts of connections in Maplewood to the city of St. Louis and beyond. In terms of full disclosure, I sit on the Great Rivers Greenway board. I represent St. Charles. I'm coming to this not as a board member, but as a member of KTRS and a talk show host. Scott Ogilvy, St. Louis Board of Aldermen. Welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Great. Good morning. How are you?
All right. So what happened here?
Well, for years, the city and Great Rivers Greenway and Maplewood have been planning this 1 mile trail connection. It would connect the River to Pear Trail to the existing Deer Creek Trail, which right now starts near the Deer Creek Shopping Center near Big Bend. It was about a $3 million project. It was funded. We would have liked to start construction later in 2018, but the Maplewood City Council could not really come to an agreement on some of the details of the project, and that was a problem for Great Rivers Greenway because part of this was funded with external transportation grant funding through East-West Gateway, and there's pretty strict time limits on that funding. And they were concerned if there were continued delays, they would have to give the funding back, and ultimately that's a decision they had to make last week.
My understanding is that this was not going to cost Maplewood a nickel.
Exactly, or the city. Yeah, this was no cost to either city.
And so it was fully funded, no extra money from Maplewood. It's already tax dollars that are approved by the sales tax that have already been voted on by the people of the region. And so what was Maplewood? Now, you're a city guy. Why do you care if Maplewood turned down this grant money?
Well, the project was also in the city, so it started on the east side in the city at Slay Park, which is near Arsenal and McCausland, and traveled west along Canterbury into Maplewood, along Greenwood, and then to Big Bend. So it was a project that was in both jurisdictions. So both the city and Maplewood, were planning on it and had to agree to the plan. But I think kind of the whole region, or the whole southwest part of the city and inner suburbs, should care. Because this would have connected two trails that right now are not connected, and there would have been a continuous trail system from Webster Groves and then headed east to the River to Pear Trail, which goes south, goes all the way basically to Jefferson Barracks now. So that would have been a really nice trail amenity with a lot of miles of off-street trail. People like these trails. They get used a lot, and but it can be a challenge to build them through, areas that have already been developed. And unfortunately, I think Maplewood's indecision is going to lead to a delay of many years on this segment.
From my understanding, Great Rivers Greenway spent a lot of time and effort getting public input and was, from all accounts, the public was very enthusiastic when they did their outreach to find out what the community thought. Apparently, the Maplewood residents were thrilled with this bike path.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that people want these amenities near them. I mean, they want to be able to walk down the block and get on the trail and walk their dog or push their baby stroller. They're nice things to have. And beyond just the trail, these projects always end up, upgrading signalized crossings, traffic signals. A lot of times there's, repaving streets involved. So there's a lot of just improvements to the public right-of-way that happen when you do these projects. I think everybody appreciates whether you're directly using the trail or not. So I think it's a big missed opportunity to make some important safety improvements to this corridor, particularly at Greenwood and Sutton, where there's a level rail crossing. I think that's a big miss. I think the whole corridor could have been made safer and more attractive. I think you would have had a safer crossing at Big Bend, and everybody living east of Big Bend would have had easy access to the Deer Creek Trail across Big Bend, and now that access is going to continue to be not very good.
We know that people love to sort of delay projects by having more environmental studies and, nickel and diming, and, we're not sure about this crossing, and oh my goodness, what about the birds in this tree and the bats in that tree? And so if you want a bike path or a road or, something, you can, as a city official, you can nickel and dime someone to death to where the project just goes away, or you can work with them. What was it? Why did Maplewood ultimately not able to come to an agreement to accept a bike path, which everybody seemed to want, a bike path which was paid for, and a bike path which everyone screams for? Why did Maplewood not want this in their neighborhood?
Well, I think that's a question for a couple of the city council members on the Maplewood City Council who, I think there were about 3 people who each had sort of different concerns or different questions, and they couldn't see eye to eye, or they had different opinions on what should happen. And so Maplewood, they sent a letter and they asked for all these things from Great Rivers Greenway, including things like an underpass at Big Bend, which was sort of far beyond the scope of the project and would have added $1 million or $2 million or who knows how much.
Right.
And a bunch of other things that when you added them all up would have probably doubled or more the cost of the project. So I think Maplewood might tell you, oh, no, we were playing ball. We were trying to make it work. But when you put so many requirements and you take a project from $3 million to $6 million, from my perspective, that's not the fact that it's not happening, I think, proves that maybe was not the right approach.
Right. So the fact that Maplewood stood in the way and was not able to agree on this, that affects sort of quite a number of people who don't live in Maplewood.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you live in Webster Groves and you want to go east, now there's not going to be a trail there. If you live in Richmond Heights or Shrewsbury and you want to access the trail, it's not going to be there. And if you're on the River to Pear Trail, you're not going to have this direct connection to the Deer Creek Trail, which you would have had.
Yeah.
And that Deer Creek Trail goes by a nice park in Maplewood. I just think it's a huge missed opportunity that would have allowed a nice connection for a lot of families in the area to easily access the park and some other amenities. And it's really, it's not typical that you give funding back for a project.
Yeah.
So this really is an unusual outcome for sure.
Scott Ogilvie, St. Louis City Board of Aldermen. From what I understand, there's no way to go get this back, right? I mean, the grant, Great Rivers Greenway had to release the grant. He couldn't satisfy the requirements. So this opportunity, it's now officially lost.
That's how I understand it. I mean, at least, for the next several years, it's still part of the regional trail network plan, and I'm sure at some point in the future it'll be revisited. But, a lot of effort's been expended the last year to make this happen, and I think from Great Rivers Greenway's perspective, I can't speak for them
Sure.
directly, but I think it's going to be a few years before they come back and give this another shot.
Yeah. Scott Ogilvie, St. Louis City Board of Aldermen. Scott, thanks for your time. Have a good day.